The senator from Oklahoma.
It's been a long conversation about a Supreme Court justice. Quite frankly, there should be a long conversation. It's an incredibly important role of the Senate for advice and consent. When we talk about a Supreme Court justice, this is someone who serves on the court for life. So it's got to be right. The long conversation about Neil Gorsuch is coming to a head. The next week, he'll come to this floor. He'll face final debate, and the very long confirmation process will end with him joining the Supreme Court as the 9th justice. When he's added on as an associate justice, it won't have been a short journey. He's met with every single senator face to face. He's made all the time available that they wanted to have for face-to-face questions and to be able to go through those issues personally. He's been in very long hearings. He sat down hour after hour, multiple days, answering questions from senators in the Judiciary Committee, then a vote from the Judiciary Committee, and then coming to this floor. There's been research into his background into every case. Everything he's ever written, every speech he's ever given has been examined overwhelmingly. And at the end of that, he's been found to be a very serious member of the judiciary. In this body, in 2006, he was put on the 10th circuit that Oklahoma happens to be in. It was a unanimous vote in the Senate in 2006 for him to join the 10th Circuit. He was seen as a consistent, solid, mainstream, fair judge, which means Senator Joe Biden voted for him. Hillary Clinton voted for him. Chuck Schumer voted for him. Barack Obama voted for him in 2006, after going through all of his background leading up to that point. Since that time, what has happened? Has he left the mainstream during that time period, when he was overwhelmingly voted here unanimously out of the Senate to be on the 10th Circuit? Well, since that time, he's been a part of 2,700 cases in the last decade. 2,700. Of those 2,700 cases, 97% of them were unanimous. 99% of the cases, he was in the majority in those opinions. 99%. Only 1% of the time, he was not in the majority of the decision. So you may ask, who is the 10th Circuit Court that he's working with, this large group of judges that are in that court? Well, let me give you the basics of it. Of the 10th Circuit that's there right now that he's serving with, that he was in the majority with, 99% of the time, 5 of the other judges were Obama appointees. 5 of them were George W. Bush appointees. 3 of them were Clinton appointees. 3 of them were Reagan appointees. 1 was Bush 41, and 2 of them were from President Carter. That's the group that he was voting with in the majority 99% of the time. He was seen by this Senate in 2006 to be a solid mainstream jurist. Since that time period, 99% of the time in a very diverse 10th Circuit. CRS, in their background research with him, said that his opinions, Judge Gorsuch's opinions, had the fewest number of dissents of anyone in the 10th Circuit. So in other words, when he wrote the opinion, his colleagues disagreed with him the fewest number of times of anyone on the 10th Circuit. He is a solid jurist, respected around the country, and is one that deserves not only our intense investigation, but I believe deserves to be put on the Supreme Court of the United States. I look forward to voting for him next week. And I would hope in the process, as we support him, we also step up and do a process that's been consistent with this country for the last 230 years of how we process through judges. That is, we have an up or down vote. They're not blocked by a cloture vote to try to keep them from getting to a final vote. The judges here get an up or down vote. That's the way that we've done it. Of the 8 justices that are sitting on the bench right now, only 1 of them even had a cloture vote at all, and that one wasn't even close. It was 72-25, and that was Judge Alito. But just to walk through the brief history of just some of the recent judges and some of the things that have happened, and how it is absurd that we would even be discussing a filibuster of a Supreme Court justice. Justice Kagan was approved by a vote of 63 to 37. There was bipartisan support coming out of the committee. I can assure you there wasn't bipartisan support for policy positions. For some reason, Judge Gorsuch is being accused of being partisan or political or somehow connected to the president. And so that would disqualify him. Ironically, Justice Kagan was a member of the White House staff before she was nominated to go onto the court. That was not considered disqualifying when it was Justice Kagan, and it was Republicans that are in the minority looking at it. They considered everyone should be looked at fairly based on their qualifications. When even she was coming directly from the White House staff onto the Supreme Court. Justice Sotomayor was approved by a vote of 68 to 31, again bipartisan support, even in committee. Clarence Thomas, one of the most controversial nominees in this last century, came out of the committee with a divided committee. After the vote failed, the committee then voted to send his nomination to the floor without a recommendation. He then passed on a floor vote of 52 to 48. There was never a request for a cloture vote. No one filibustered him, not one person. And if Clarence Thomas would have had a filibuster threat facing him, he wouldn't be on the court today. But he's been an excellent jurist in the Supreme Court. But he came out during a time when there weren't these idle threats. It's even interesting that Robert Bork, who is currently not on the court, his vote failed 42 to 58. But that was a failed final vote. Robert Bork did not face a filibuster threat. He was brought to a final up or down vote. I can go on and on to walk through the judges and justices and how they've gone through the process. But there's been a simple procedure. Is this person qualified? The American Bar Association, multiple entities, huge bipartisan support around the country. No question he's qualified. No question he's been a great jurist. No question he's been an excellent writer. Now it's a question of, will the Senate follow through in the procedures that we have followed through in for 2 centuries? Give judges an up or down vote. And for the majority and the minority to both respect the process of what it means to be a part of Article III leaders in the Justice Department. This is the way that this works in the days ahead. This is the way it's worked in the days past. We need to be able to resolve it now. I look forward to voting up or down and getting that vote for Judge Gorsuch. I look forward to him joining the court to being that 9th justice and to the court being able to get back to their business as they have always been. There are a few issues that are unresolved from the fall. Not many cases that they were divided 4 to 4, but a few. It's time to get those resolved and be able to add this 9th justice in. With that, I yield the floor.